Hello and welcome into the Hecklers Podcast. I am your host, Gordon Coletto, and joining me again is my co-host, Billy. Billy, how are we feeling?
Honestly, since Andy Dalton's been starting, I'm feeling better.
It it is amazing what Andy Dalton has been able to do for the Panthers in making that offense look semi-competent. I think it's definitely a welcome change. I personally can't believe that we are already on week 5 of the NFL season, but there is still definitely a lot to look forward to as we move into the middle stages of the season. We should start to get a clear sense of who's built for a deep playoff run and who may be headed for an early vacation. I do want to start out today, though, talking about who we view as the contenders at this stage in the season. So, obviously, with the caveat that this is still fairly early in the season, I want to take a look at some of the teams that we think are clear standout teams ready to make a run for the playoffs. Billy, I'll let you go first on this one.
So I'm going to take the most obvious team. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. Their defense has been playing fantastic. Little concerned about the offense. Rashee Rice is out, and we still don't know the severity of his injury. For my fantasy teams, I'm hoping he comes back this season, but um, I just you got the best quarterback in the league. You've got one of the best defenses in the league. One of, if not the best head coach. I'm not worried about them at all. I think they're going to make the playoffs, right? It's just a matter of how far they make it in the playoffs. And they have so much experience that I think they'll be good.
Yeah, I think when you combine the Chiefs plus the referees, they are a really hard team to beat. And I think that they absolutely are going to make the playoffs. And it is just kind of a question of what kind of resistance they run into throughout the playoffs. The team that I'll bring up is probably the team most likely to meet them in the playoffs, and that would be the Ravens. I think
Mm.
really since that week 2 embarrassment against the Raiders, I believe, they seem to have settled on an identity of running the football and playing very good defense, a very physical, honestly, throwback Ravens style of play. And I think if they had come out with that style of offense and defense, that real physical game when they played the Chiefs and when they played the Raiders, instead of trying to make Lamar Jackson into primetime Kirk Cousins last night, like I don't need him to throw for 300, 400 yards, right? Like I just run the football and go score a touchdown because that's the name of the game. So I think if the Ravens, if they can keep this up, if they can keep their identity what it is, which is a dominant running team between Justice Hill, Derrick Henry, and Lamar Jackson, I see no reason why they shouldn't make it into the playoffs. And then for the love of God, for all of us who don't want to see a Chiefs three-peat, run the ball when you play the Chiefs. Do not get into a shootout between Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes because Lamar will lose that 9 times out of 10. Just run the ball. That's a,
Well, I think, oh,
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think a good thing for them is having a guy like Derrick Henry, even though, he's getting older for a running back. Um, he's going to take some wear and tear off of Lamar. And I think that's kind of been part of the problem is Lamar just is their offense up until this season. One thing I would love to see them probably more than anyone trade for Devontae Adams, just because Mark Andrews doesn't look like he's coming back from this injury that he had last season, and maybe he does. It's just later in the season he gets better, but all they have right now is Zay Flowers. I would love to see them have another pass catcher. That's really my only sort of critique of the team.
Yeah, I definitely think Mark Andrews sort of instantly declining, it feels like, has kind of caught them flat footed from a receiving standpoint. And I think obviously Devontae Adams is sort of the big news of the week. And where will he go? It sounds like there seems to be a consensus around the league that he's trying to orchestrate a trade to the Jets. But I do think that the Ravens would be a good landing spot for him. Lamar Jackson could definitely use another pass catcher as Zay Flowers, whom I think very highly of. I just don't think he's enough without someone to play off of. Kind of like he reminds me almost of like a Tyler Lockett, where he needs a DK Metcalf and they can play off of each other and elevate each other's game. Um, So I definitely think that that makes a lot of sense to prepare yourself for an eventual playoff run. All right, who is your second team that you
I'm
are
gonna
looking at as a contender?
I'm gonna move to the NFC, and I'm gonna go with the Lions. So they started off, a little slow to start the season, but when that offense is just going, it might be the best offense in the league. I mean, Jared Goff completed all of his passes the last game, and the only real question I have about them is I wish they had another pass rusher. But if Aiden Hutchinson keeps getting 4 sacks, in a game, then maybe that's not going to be an issue. But I just so much on offense. You have Amon-Ra, you have Laporta. Jameson Williams actually looks like a viable NFL player now. You've got the two-headed monster of Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery. Um, if it's not the best offensive line in football, it's number two. Their offensive line's fantastic. The only, and it's not even so much a question, but their biggest weakness on offense is Jared Goff. And as someone who's watched the Panthers play, I would love to have a guy like Jared Goff right now. So, I mean, they just don't have a lot of holes. Dan Quinn gets his guys ready to go. And this just feels like if they're going to do it, it has to be this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Lions are a team with a ton of personality and a ton of talent. I just I wonder about whether or not that team is just built in a way that they're ready for the bright lights of the postseason. I think they're talented. There's no doubt about it. I need to see that winning mindset. And it kind of feels like they're a scrappy underdog team. It feels like, even though they come into most weekends as the favorite, like they kind of have that underdog mentality, which may serve them well in the playoffs. But like, I kind of need to see a winning mentality too before I'm ready to fully jump into the Lions bandwagon, especially with a Vikings team out there that's just sort of like playing on house money right now in that division. So they are that's going to be one of the more fun divisions to watch as it comes down to the wire towards the end of the season. Um, for me in the NFC, I'm looking at the San Francisco 49ers, and I know it's boring to pick a team like the 49ers to come out of the NFC, but the reality is like they're so good. That defense is good. The offense, Brock Purdy, I owe him an apology. I thought for sure that this was going to be a regression year, and he's looking good. He's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. And Jordan Mason steps in, and it's like Christian McCaffrey never left. And Christian McCaffrey is currently obviously not healthy, but also not taking any wear and tear. You may have a fresh Christian McCaffrey ready to go for the second half of the season. And I think the 49ers could be in for a deep playoff run once again, which obviously wouldn't surprise anybody. And is, like I said, a boring pick. But I think you do have to call them out when you're talking about the contenders at this stage of the season.
I will. So I let you say your spiel, but Mason is not Christian McCaffrey. He's running the ball well, but it's not the same kind of weapon.
No,
And I think
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying in terms of the offense being able to move the ball, being able to
oh, okay, I
score
see what you're
and
saying.
control
Yeah,
games, they're not missing Christian McCaffrey right now.
yeah, and I think it's good. Assuming he comes back this season, there's rumblings that he retires. Um, and I don't know how true that is. Um, but
Hmm.
that's kind of my biggest concern with their offense. They have a bunch of weapons. I mean, Debo seems to get hurt every year, and so does Kittle. So it's obviously kind of like a hopefully they stay healthy and everything's going to be okay. Do you think that because they've gotten so close so many times to winning a Super Bowl and they just can't get over the hump? Do you think that is ever just going to drag them down?
I mean, it is. You think back to like the Bills, and it's like certain teams, and in this case, I almost actually put it more on like Kyle Shanahan, as like certain people just can never seem to summit the mountain. They can get close, but then they fall off. And I think that's becoming Kyle Shanahan's reputation. And I think that it's going to take a Super Bowl win to overcome that narrative. And ultimately, I don't put it as much on the individual game or players as much as I do like the health of the team and the ability to go in there and play your brand of football. Like, don't get caught up in the moment. Don't get caught up in changing that narrative. Go out there and play your brand of football and win the game. Because if you go out there, if the 49ers and Chiefs meet in the Super Bowl, which, could be a likely scenario, this Chiefs offense is not very good. The 49ers defense can handle them. Like,
especially if Rice is out the rest of the season.
yes, and Brock Purdy and the offense are perfectly efficient enough and sufficient enough to put up a reasonable number of points against the Chiefs defense, probably somewhere in the 20 to 30 range, which means all you have to do is hold the Chiefs offense to 17 to 24 points, which I think is doable. We've seen it this year. So I think it's as much about just going out there and sticking with your identity. This is why I make fun of the Ravens, because every time they play the Chiefs, they just forget who the hell they are. And it's like, just go out there, be who you are, play the game you've played all year, and you'll win the game. And I think I think it's just, can they stay out of their own head? I don't think
Well,
it's a
and Kyle
talent
Shanahan in
issue.
big games doesn't seem to be able to do that. But
Yeah. Well, then that's some guys are like that. Some guys are built different. Some guys are like Kyle Shanahan. All right. Speaking of Kyle Shanahan and coaches, I want to talk about the coaches that are on the hot seat. So, we've talked about teams that we think are headed for the playoffs, but I want to talk about teams who maybe had playoff aspirations, but things have gone off the rails. And as such, the coaches of these teams should really be on the hot seat. So I'll kick us off on this one. For me, the number one coach that I think should be on the hot seat this year is Doug Peterson in Jacksonville. They came into this season, they just paid Trevor Lawrence an enormous amount of money. Buku bucks made him one of the highest paid players in the league. And you show up and you look absolutely terrible. You look lethargic. Trevor Lawrence looks terrible. This team is nowhere near a playoff team. They're probably the third best team in their division, let alone in the conference. So for me, I think Doug Peterson, absolutely a lot of question marks need to be swirling around him. I think he had the right personality to stabilize the team after the mess of Urban Meyer, but I do not think he is creative enough as a coach and play caller to lead the Jaguars into the next era of Jaguars football with Trevor Lawrence, which they hope are consistent runs to the playoffs.
yeah, I'd agree with that. He's living off his reputation of that one Super Bowl because he really hasn't done anything outside of that season. I know the Eagles went to the playoffs the season after that, but he's just not that good of a head coach. And I don't want my head coach wearing a visor. It's not the
Uh,
right look. It just doesn't. It doesn't give me confidence that he knows what he's doing. I can't explain why, but it makes sense.
who wore the visor better, Gruden or Peterson?
Mm,
I feel like it's got to be Gruden, right?
that's kind of where I was leaning.
Yeah. I think it became synonymous of like the QB sit downs, You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about? Talking about sitting down with quarterbacks, talking about routes and making plays. That's
old
that
spider too wide banana.
spider two Y banana. That's the best Gruden I can give you. All right, who you got for me? Who's on the hot seat?
So I'm going to go to New York, and I'm going to go to the Jets. I don't, short of a Super Bowl, Robert Saleh is not coming back. Like it's just it. We've been in this carousel with him now for a season or two, where it's just like, is he going to be back? Is this it? Him and Rogers. Rogers doesn't get along with anybody, so they don't seem to be getting along. Um, they're losing games that they shouldn't lose. And I know, his defenses always look good and the offense for his teams never does. But at some point, him and the GM, at some point, you got to say this isn't working. And I think we're getting to that point. I think Rodgers has so much power in that building that if he comes back next season, Salah's gone. And I think no matter what happens to Rodgers, I think Salah's gone.
Yeah, so I mean, we have 3 seasons of data to go off of for Robert Saleh. So he takes over a team from Crazy Eyes, Adam Gase, that had just gone 2-14. They go 4-13 the next year, and then they go 7-10 and 7-10. To me, I'm not seeing any kind of growth in that team. And it very much feels like Aaron Rodgers is running the organization. It's kind of like
He's
LeBron and
taken
the
over way
Lakers.
too fast.
Yeah, it's LeBron and the Lakers, where it's like we know who's really calling the shots. And much like what LeBron does to every single coach that comes to coach him, he's gonna get thrown out by Aaron Rodgers. And I think that absolutely makes sense. I don't think Robert Saleh makes it into next season as the Jets coach just based on not meeting expectations and the fact that Aaron Rodgers is going to want who he wants as the coach if he's around next year.
Hey, maybe Nathaniel Hackett will get promoted.
Oh God. That's you know what? That's exactly what Jets fans deserve. And here's the thing. I'm so happy about this because like I can't stand teams that try to do this. You can't win with your own roster, so you're going to go and try to buy up a future Hall of Fame quarterback at the end of his career to try to go steal a championship because you can't draft a quarterback to save your
And I
life.
think the problem is their roster really wasn't there.
No,
Like this was a roster that needed a young quarterback to take off because there's not enough on offense. Brees Hall is very good. Garrett Wilson
is a bum.
was good. I don't really know what's going on this season.
He's a bum.
But even I mean, they need more outside of those two. The offensive line hasn't been great. I mean,
Well, and
it's just nothing's developing.
it's not like Brees Hall's setting the world on fire either. And I don't think
No.
that defense is not as good as they were last year, obviously. Like there's not much I'd be happy about if I was a Jets fan right now.
Yeah, it's not like, you took him and put him on the 49ers, before they traded for Trey Lance, where it's like, okay, this is the situation where you go get this Hall of Fame quarterback to bump you over the edge.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I'm going to move into another coach who has had to deal with Aaron Rodgers. Another one who I think should be on the hot seat is everyone's favorite laughable idiot, Mike McCarthy, who
Honestly, that should have been the 1-1 pick. We both kind of messed up there.
I know. But see, I was kind of saving it as like it's so obvious that we have to call it out kind of thing. But yeah, Mike McCarthy in Dallas. I mean, Jerry Jones has got to be done with him, right?
Well, and I think um, with Bill Belichick being out there, that's a very Cowboys move to go get him. And so, unless McCarthy, kind of like Solid, unless McCarthy wins the Super Bowl, he's gone.
Yep. Oh, I totally agree. I mean, I saw something the other day where it was talking about how the Cowboys have like all this regular season success, and their entire reputation is built off of regular season success in our lifetimes. And it's like they've had no postseason success whatsoever in our lifetimes. So like we need to roll back and adjust expectations for this team because and it's weird to say that because they're so talented and there's so many stars on that team, but it's like they don't win in the
It just
playoffs.
never works.
Yep. And yeah, for me, I think Mike McCarthy's got to go. I think that they need somebody more creative, somebody more modern, which is not exactly what I would call Bill Belichick. But I guess Jerry Jones may be looking at Bill and thinking to himself, "I want a slice of that." So who knows? Although I will say, maybe Bill Belichick's 20-year-old girlfriend can come and call the offense, and we'll get a nice young look.
Also, I am going to deviate. Good for Bill. Just good for Bill.
Good on you. I mean, there you go. He did the scouting. I mean, you know,
He watched the film. He knew what he had to do.
I mean, you got to figure he wasn't just going to colleges to scout players. He was looking for his next girlfriend.
Bill scouting no matter what he does.
Exactly. All right, give me your last coach so that we can get into our weekend preview.
All right, I'm going to need your help picking a coach because I have two that are tied, and they're both
Uh,
in the NFC East.
oh, see, I was going to say whoever the Panthers coach is because
Okay,
David
I'm
Tepper's
going to.
kink is firing coaches.
Anyway, let's just let me be happy for a second.
Okay.
So Nick Sirianni or Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll doesn't fit the criteria of it being a playoff team, but I think he's gone. I just that nothing outside of Malik Neighbors looks good on that team. Defense sometimes looks good.
And I
Daniel
mean,
Jones sucks.
and Brian Dable has no identity anymore. Ozembic took away the one thing
Well, I
that
was gonna
made
say I
Brian
liked him
Dable.
better fat. Like
I know
it's just not right.
it just doesn't feel
It was
right.
like
So
Rex Ryan. Like Rex Ryan needed to be fat as a head coach, and he got the gastric band, whatever, and then he lost weight, and he just was never
it's
the same.
not the same. And it's honestly, should we start sending Ozembic to Andy Reid in hopes that we ruin him?
But see, I like Andy Reid.
I don't.
And then, so going back to the topic though, Nick Sirianni, I
Yeah,
feel like he's lost that team. That team needs some structure,
that team's
and it's
lost
just
in
not
general.
there.
I don't think. I don't think Jalen Hurts is very good. I don't know about
I
you.
don't either. Yeah, I've been thinking that since last season. I'm like, maybe he's just they caught lightning in a bottle one season, and
Kind of like
he
the
doesn't have a good arm.
Bengals. Like
Yeah,
maybe this is not a maybe this team is not as good as we thought. Maybe they're not a
I
perennial
would agree with
contender.
that. I think
So
everyone was just like everyone loves their drafts because they draft based on what the mock drafts have, but these guys never develop. Like Jalen Carter, good. Is he the superstar we all were hoping for? And I know it's a second season, but no, he's not.
yeah.
And it just never happens.
Yep. No, I completely agree. I think
I'm gonna
just
say both of them get axed. I'm gonna have my list with three.
I like it. I mean, I think apparently if you're the Eagles GM, you just go down to Athens, Georgia, and just grab whatever player they have available
I'm
when you're
surprised he
supposed to
can catch
pick.
them with how fast they are.
Exactly. All right. We need to preview the weekend and then get out of here so everyone can enjoy their weekend. So we're going to do this like we always do. We're going to go back and forth, picking games. We'll give you who we think the winner is and one storyline that we may be looking at in this one. Billy, I'm going to let you have dealer's choice here. We've got Jets, Vikings, and Panthers, Bears. Do you want to go first with Jets, Vikings, or do you want to guess the Panthers, Bears game?
I'm gonna go Jets Vikings because I don't have any emotions in that.
Love it.
Um, so I've actually thought about this game as I've been thinking about placing bets this weekend, and I just think this is the game. So I have two things. I think this is the game where the Vikings get caught a little flat-footed because it's in London, and both teams are leaving at on Thursday. So they left yesterday, and the Vikings are an hour behind. So that's my rationale for they're going to get caught flat-footed. Is they're an hour behind what the Jets are, so they're going to have more jet lag. And then
I
I
see.
think
I
this
see
is the
what you did
game.
there.
Yeah, it was 100% on purpose, and I didn't have that come to me as you said. I see what you said did there. My other thought is I think this is the game Garrett Wilson goes off. The Vikings have been giving up. I have Garrett Wilson on my fantasy team. They give up a lot of points to their wide receivers, so
All right.
I'm just going with the Jets.
You heard it here first. Jet lag causes the Vikings to drop a game to the Jets in the Sam Darnold revenge game. All right. I get the Bryce Young Bowl, a matchup decided by one of the most awful trades in recent history. Sorry.
Just let me
And
have it.
no, the Bears have completely rebuilt their roster on the backs of Carolina Panthers fans. And I think they keep it rolling. I think Caleb Williams picks up a win here. I think this is salt in the wound for Panthers fans as DJ Moore is going to have a big game against the Panthers, and the Bears will take this one. I'm sorry, Billy.
What about the Andy Dalton revenge game?
Is
Did you
that
factor that into your analysis?
Oh my God. If I had to do a revenge game for every team Andy Dalton has played for, the Panthers would be 17-0.
Well, I mean, he
No,
hasn't played the Saints yet. They almost beat the Bengals. I'm just saying.
it's not happening. He is not primetime Kirk Cousins. Kirko, 500 yards last night.
All right, let's move on.
All right. We've got Browns, Commanders. You get to pick this one.
I don't know why I keep doing this to myself. I'm going to take the Browns.
Do it.
And my reasoning is I think this is the game where the Browns have a very good defensive performance. I don't believe in Watson. I don't believe in the Browns offense.
but you believe in
Um,
their defense.
yeah, which is it cost me in Survivor Pool, but I'm just going to stick with it.
Oh
At some
man.
point, Jaden Daniels is going to have a bad game.
I just don't think this is the one, but all right, you heard it here. Billy's going Browns. We'll see how it goes. I've been shitting on them every Tuesday during the recap pod. All right, we've got oh Lord, I get Patriots Dolphins. This one I
This is
believe
going to be
is
the worst game of the week.
oh, absolutely. This one is in New England. Not that that matters anymore because that stadium is empty on a weekly basis. Let's see. No to Patriots suck. Dolphins suck. Let's go ahead. We'll go with the home field advantage here. I'm going to give it to the Patriots.
Are you
And
not going to go for a tie?
no. I'm going to give it to the Patriots. It's going to be a three. No, it's going to be decided on a safety. It's a 2-0 victory for the Patriots. As far as a storyline from this one, I would look at this one as the complete and total collapse of the Dolphins and their season. And questions will start to be swirling about should they trade Tyreek Hill? Should they blow it up? Is McDaniel the guy to lead them forward? So that's what I look at for this one. All right. Colts, Jaguars, Billy, who you got?
So I'm actually going to take Jacksonville on this one. The Colts haven't won in Jacksonville. I think it was like 2013 was the last time they won in Jacksonville. We don't know who's starting at quarterback for the Colts unless something's come out that I'm not aware of whether it's Richardson or Flacco. Jacksonville played better last week. They almost beat the Texans. So I think this is the week that they get their first win. And we start to see some flashes from Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I think if you're a Jacksonville fan, this is the week where it's got to start, and this is about the time that they normally start to play football. If you look at the last couple seasons, so I could see that happening. All right, I get Bills Texans, a showdown between two teams headed for the playoffs. This one's in Houston. I just don't think Houston's ready to play with the big boys yet. Give me Buffalo in this one. Josh Allen bounces back after a rough performance last weekend. Look for him to dominate this game and get the win over the Texans. All right, we've got Ravens Bengals for you, Billy. I keep giving you tough ones.
Yeah, this may be the toughest one to call. Because I've been going back and forth on it.
Keep in mind, Miles Sanders, or not, Chuba Hubbard ran for like over 100 yards against the Bengals.
Well, and that's my deciding factor is that I believe the Bengals always play well against the Ravens, but the Bengals defense is horrible right now. Give me the Ravens in Cincinnati.
Love it. I'm right there with you. All right. I've got Raiders Broncos, a showdown between, again, two bad
You're
teams.
just getting all the bad teams.
I know. I get like the awful matchups that are going to be decided based on like whether the wind blows in the one field goal that gets kicked. Let's see. Raiders, I mean, they've won some games this year. I have no confidence in the Broncos
Well, and
whatsoever.
Devontae's out.
Well, yeah, but they won last week without him, right?
But this is this week.
I'm talking Jacoby Myers. I'm talking Trey Tucker. I'm talking Brock Bowers. I mean, Broncos, horses, Russell Wilson, let's ride. Give it to me. Raiders win this one in Denver. All right. Cardinals, 49ers. Who you got?
49ers at home. Give me the Niners. Let's go to the next one.
Love it. All right. I've got Giants, Seahawks. Seattle, DK Metcalf questionable in this one. But Seattle's defense had a little rough week last week, but they've looked pretty good all year. Run game is solid. Dexter Lawrence is a great run stopper, but not enough on that defensive line with two squishy defensive ends in Burns and Thibodeau. So give me Seattle running the ball all over the Giants. All right. We've got Packers, Rams in Los Angeles. Who you got?
I'm going to take the Packers. The Rams have been decimated by injury, specifically on offense. Puka, please come back, help my fantasy team. And I think this is going to be like a Jordan Love statement game. And so I've got the Packers.
Yep. Makes sense. I think Jordan Love needs to bounce back and prove that he can play football and not just play like he's in Madden down by 30 points.
Yeah.
That was absurd. 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 50-plus passing attempts last week. Give me a break. All right. I've got Cowboys at Steelers. I think this is going to go to the Cowboys. I think this is a
I
get right game
agree.
for them. So there's not really much to be said there. I think the Steelers are a bit of a paper tiger. All right, Saints Chiefs.
It's in Arrowhead. The Chiefs are going to win. I don't think the Saints are ready for the Chiefs defense.
Yeah. No, I think you're totally right on this one. I I think the Saints, we've kind of talked about this. I think they're a paper tiger. I don't know about you, but like I I don't that team doesn't scare me. And Olave is in that Garrett Wilson range where I'm just like, maybe you're not as good as we thought you were.
Which that hurts both of us because I've always been high on Wilson and you've always been high on Olave.
Yep. I think the only saving grace for them is that Kamara seems to have turned back the clock and is just rushing out of his mind, running back number one this year.
Yeah, no, I think that's their only real strong suit that they have. I mean, everything else is kind of just average to me as they
Yep.
crush the Panthers, by 40.
I think Rashid Shaheed is like a good bright spot for them in terms of young talent. But yeah, they've got a lot to do, and I don't think Taysom Hill is going to be the answer to all their problems. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. We've got week 5 to look forward to. We're going to be back. I guess I'll be back on Tuesday to do our recap show where we talk about all the action from the weekend and talk about what we learned from these games. We'll see how right and wrong we were about how this weekend is going to go. One thing I can tell you is that Billy was wrong about the Browns and they got crushed. As always, thank you for listening. For Billy, I'm Gordon saying, keep heckling.
1,